This presentation was filmed live at the Purple Peacock in downtown Littleton, New Hampshire. 603-575-5409. Visit them online at thepurplepeacocknh.com or stop in at 49 Main Street in Littleton, New Hampshire.
Hi, I'm Chad Stearns, member of the Littleton Select Board. This year, voters will elect a moderator, selectman, supervisor of the checklist, trustee of the trust fund, park commissioner, and 3 library trustees. You'll also be voting on the approval of the proposed budget and 52 other warrant articles. Articles 2 through 40 are town-sponsored articles generated by the town. Articles 40 through 54 are petitioned articles submitted by groups or organizations requesting assistance from the community. We hope to provide you with information that helps you make informed decisions on March 10th. The annual election is Tuesday, March 10th. Voting will be held at the Public Works Garage next to the police station. Please mark your calendar and turn out for the election. With me now is Town Manager Andrew Dorsett and Finance Director Karen Noyes. Several of us, including department heads, will be presenting information on the 2020 budget and town recommended warrant articles.
This is our 5th year in producing a proposed budget and warrant article presentation for the Granite North TV viewers. We hope that this format is useful and helps educate voters about the upcoming election. Areas of the budget that have notable changes and departments that have proposed warrant articles will be highlighted.
The proposed 2020 budget is $9,136,489, and the default budget is $9,056,168. All right.
Sorry.
The proposed budget is 2.38% higher than the 2019 budget. The default budget is $80,322, or 0.89% less than the 2020 proposed budget. The proposed budget revenues are $7,382,953.
The estimated impact of the default budget would be $2.677 per thousand. The estimated impact of the proposed budget would be $2.73 per thousand. The difference is 36 cents between the default and the proposed budget. If all warrant articles are passed with the default budget, the estimated tax rate, if nothing changes, would be 23.47 cents per thousand. $23.47. The proposed budget and all warrant articles passing would be $23.83. $23.83.
Let me put this into perspective for what the proposed budget with all the town-sponsored articles means for the Littleton property owner. For a property value of $150,000, you would see an increase of $109 on your tax bill. For a property value of $200,000, you would see an increase of $146 on your tax bill. And for a property value of $300,000, you would see an increase of $219 on your tax bill.
The Executive Office's budget is $285,430. This budget includes the board's executive secretary, health officer, moderator, select board, town manager, ongoing town mapping projects, professional services, books and periodicals, among other items. The budget has a slight increase of 0.3% this year.
The town clerk's budget has a slight increase of $3,517. Included in this budget is the town clerk, a full-time and part-time employee. This office handles elections, official vital record issuance, preservation and retention, and vehicle registrations. Increases are due to additional elections in 2020.
The tax collector's office handles the generating and maintenance of sewer bills, tax billing, collection, records, tax liens, sales, and delinquency. In addition, the office functions as the town's assessing clerk, working closely with the assessing office and planning and zoning to help ensure that the town's tax cards are accurate. In addition, this office also handles filing of liability claims. The tax collector's budget has a slight decrease at $73,164. Finance Administration Department has a finance manager and accounts receivable clerk. It handles all of the town's bookkeeping, investment, debt service, and some of the human resource activities. This year's financial administration budget is up 1.09% to $161,383, which reflects, among other things, changes in training, insurances, and time allocated to wages and salaries.
Assessing serves a primary role of determining the property values for parcels in town and is a critical component of establishing the town's tax rate. In 2016, a new assessing schedule was initiated. Annually, 1/4 of parcels were visited and valued each year, with a revaluation scheduled for this year. The assessing budget has an increase of $10,000, which reflects the increase in contracted utility revaluation work and increases in software licensing. The legal budget is $97,600. The town works closely with legal counsel to ensure policies and contracts are equitable and taxpayer exposure is minimalized.
Personnel administration includes expenses such as help wanted advertisement, workman's comp insurance payments, drug testing, benefits administration, unemployment insurance, inoculations, and pre-employment screenings, to name a few. Increased personnel time dedicated to the complex human resource activities make up the bulk of the increase, with the budget at $159,243. The Planning and Zoning Office has one full-time and one part-time zoning officer, in addition to the Planning and Zoning Board's expenses. The office is experiencing increased commercial and residential development, coordination, planning, and general inquiries, as well as expenses related to appeals. The budget increased to $108,075. General government and buildings, including expenses related to the Opera House, non-venue expense, and town office expenses, includes items such as electricity, sewer, heating, fuel, building maintenance, telephones, and other operational expenses. General buildings and maintenance has a increase to $88,145.
The insurance budget is for the town's liability insurance and is estimated to decrease by 8.78%. It reflects a decrease in property and liability costs. Liability insurance covers all town buildings, vehicles, equipment, and events. Advertising and regional associations covers the cost of publications, the town report, dues, and media services such as Granite North Television, coverage of select board meetings, and other town-related events. Under other general government, this includes contributions of $35,000 to the Littleton Community Center, which continued in 2020.
All right, with me now is Finance Manager Karen Noyes. Karen's been with the town for several years.
18 plus years.
18 plus years. As she often reminds me, she's been through how many town managers?
You're number 9.
9, but who's counting? Karen and I were just going to go over some other parts of the budget. So there are a number of budget items that don't impact the taxpayers, such as sewer, parking meter, police special detail.
Yes.
Could you explain, these are I think called enterprise funds, could you explain what an enterprise fund is?
An enterprise fund is the revenues coming in support the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have expenditures and when you budget for this, it has to be a revenue neutral budget,
Mm-hmm.
meaning showing that there's no additional funds coming from the taxpayers.
So it's really fee-based.
So it's fee-based,
fee-based for a service or a good.
Or charges,
Yeah.
like the special detail fund is.
Mm-hmm.
So, example, the detail fund, someone is requesting detail, we have someone assigned to that duty, they go out, work the duty, the bill is processed and sent to the vendor that's requesting this service, and they're billed just a little bit more than what we actually pay out. So those funds end up falling into the special detail fund balance.
Which pays for the labor or equipment that was used. So for example, the police might have requests to work some event down in a park, and they'll be charging the event organizer, and then their pay will actually be covered by the fund.
Correct.
Okay. Parking meters, similar budget where, there's meter enforcement and improvements that have to be done to the parking lots, and that's actually funded by the meter fees.
Right.
Or fines.
Right.
Yeah.
So nothing comes from the taxpayer
Mm-hmm.
unless you're using a meter
Yep. And then the same thing with the sewer budget. The sewer budget's paid for by the users,
by the users.
and the fee that's associated with the sewer, or the sewer rate, is a direct amount that's directly associated with the cost of operating
Yes.
the sewer. So there's no taxpayer. Thank you, Karen. So the planning board is an official board of the town, and it's appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Articles 2 and 3 this year are sponsored by the planning board and supported by the select board to put on the warrant. There's a zoning change for short-term housing and another rezone of an area that the lot was split, and it would make the lot entirely zoned commercial. Another article this year the town negotiated 2 collective bargaining agreements with the employees of Public Works, the fire department, the transfer station, and the police department. Could you walk us through the overall financial cost of these contracts?
Well, the collective
Intern.
bargaining for the SEA, which is considered the police department, the individuals there have negotiated with the town, and the first year's cost is $23,614. This includes wages, benefits, wage-related benefits, any reductions we might have been able to remove. They have offered up a small reduction and they're paying a little more if this is approved toward their health insurance.
And how many years is that contract?
The contract's 3 years. In 2021, the cost is $34,785. In 2022, it's $37,273. And these employees did not get a raise last year. There was negotiations that we didn't get finalized and time for town meetings, so we moved everything for this year and got through negotiations, and I feel that we have a very reasonable contract.
And so also we have AFSCME,
Yes.
which is fire, public works, and transfer station.
Correct.
And what do we see? What's an overview of the financial impact
That
of
is
that?
a 2-year contract.
Okay.
And this contract covers just about 22 people right now. It includes the transfer station, it includes the fire department EMS, and the public works department. The first year, we're looking at a cost of $23,839. There's been negotiations and concessions on both sides. Again, this group did not get a raise last year. Toward close to the time that we had to do the warrant articles, we had not got an answer and things hadn't been finalized, so we had to move till this year. Theirs is 2 years. In the second year of the contract of 2021, the estimated cost is $33,978. That includes increases, that includes wage-related benefits. It includes some reductions as well in health insurance, disability insurance.
Holiday.
Holiday for the fire department. There's some adjustment on way payments are handled. It includes a revision of callback for overtime pay and straight pay.
Yep.
We actually gained 2 callback processes where there might be some savings there, and also a reduction in the hours that we have to pay for the first callback. Instead of 3 hours, it's 2 hours.
I think overall, the board and staff negotiated a very conservative agreements with the labor unions.
I agree with you.
And I think that they're going to serve both the employees and the town, the taxpayers, well over the next 2 to 3 years.
And we all wanted to see it be successful and then get the voters' approval.
Absolutely. So some remaining town-sponsored warrant articles, one of them is unexpended conservation commission funds. Now, this has no tax impact. Could you tell us what that's about?
Correct. Every year, the Conservation Commission has a small budget. It usually runs about $3,000. And anything that they have left over, they ask to put into their conservation fund, which has been set up many years ago. And this year, I believe they had $223. Last year it was $11. And it comes out of their balance of on expenditures from last year. So there's no cost to the taxpayers.
So, there's 3 other articles, and I've talked to them about them with the department heads, and it's really a tax stabilization effort. These are the establishing of capital reserve funds for equipment purchases, and really fire, police, and public works, and which all have significant equipment needs and replacements. Could you talk about the relation to the retiring of some debt and the concept that we have of bringing these funds online?
Sure. In the process this year, we did, in our Public Works Department specifically, a huge review of the equipment, what our needs were, and how we could stabilize the tax rate or the tax effect of all of those needs, and trying to eliminate the humps each year where there might be a big jump in that requirement. So we do have a payment that is finished being paid off in 2020 that is a significant amount. It's almost $500,000. So reviewing the Public Works Department, we came up with what was going to be the best solution with the least impact on a regular basis to catch up on our equipment and stabilize that amount needed for that department. Their equipment is quite pricey. So the goal is we're going to open a capital reserve fund, which the taxpayers will have to vote on to use those funds. They also have to vote to put money into that. This year we're only asking for $1,000. We're also asking for the vehicle lease for the Public Works Department. The effort in this is to try to stabilize the amount needed to keep up with the equipment needs and put away money in the future at $350,000 per year.
Yeah.
And if we do this, the plan is to go out roughly 15 years, and each year we'll be putting money away.
The same amount every year.
The same amount every year, either in lease payments or in the capital reserve funds, so that when we need that big jump in equipment, expensive jump in equipment, we have the funds to cover it. And we're not going out and needing to borrow money, and the voters will have to vote to expend that money at town meeting. And the only way that can change is if the voters change it at town meeting to the selectmen authorization.
Yeah, and really, so the big purchases that will come up in the next 5, 10, 15 years, like for example, a grader is hundreds of thousands of dollars. We wouldn't have to go to the voters and say, hey, we're going to have to raise and spike the tax rate to buy this big piece of equipment. It's going to be the same amount going into the account every year and keeping it stable. Similar to what we already kind of do with roads, in that we spend $500,000 on roads every year. But this is saving the money.
Utilize the same amount every year, whether it goes into the fund or goes toward lease payments.
Right. Yep. Now, also this year, we're creating a EMS ambulance revolving fund. Is that any different than the capital reserve funds?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you explain what that is?
A revolving fund is you have revenues coming in, you have expenditures going out. Those funds fall into a special revolving fund that can be utilized only for the purposes that fund's set up for. similar to the transfer station. They only can be used for that department, for pieces of equipment, for whatever the selectmen authorize it can be used for. So, example, if we had 50,000 in there, then a piece of equipment is needed, it can be pulled from those funds. The Parks and Recs fund is set up exactly like that. It's a revolving fund where revenues come in, the taxpayers also pay a portion of it, not a large portion, but a portion of it. And the expenditures go out. Anything that's left over at the end of the year falls into that fund balance, revolving fund balance, and can be authorized to use.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
All right, with me now is Chief Joe Mercieri. Chief, you're doing a great job keeping fires down and people safe.
Thank you.
Chief, we're here to talk a little bit about your budget. There's been some increases, some decreases, and you do have a couple of warrant articles, which we can talk about after. But could you tell us a little bit about some of the changes in your budget this year? I see, part-time positions and training and utilities, among other things, has some increases.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. So within the fire department budget, we have had some changes. The permanent position line was increased to incorporate a small raise for the firefighters, which is contractual. Our training line has increased slightly due to the increase in tuition and books for training classes. What we're doing there is we're gradually transitioning to more of an online system, which will at some point save costs in both, let's say, tuition costs and travel costs to the classes. As more of those classes become available online, we'll be transitioning more and more to that. Reason we have an increase in training costs is because of our certifications, in both the fire certifications and the EMS or medical certifications. There's state and federal requirements, licensing requirements, that we have to have a certain amount of continuing educational credits and also certification refreshers that we're required to take and to pass on a continual basis. So there is a lot of maintenance to maintaining the certifications.
I see there's some, smaller amounts in utilities and building maintenance. It seems like there's an increase there. I don't know if you have some projects planned, or is that just?
It's building maintenance is mostly trying to keep the firehouse in great shape. Obviously, it's a building that's starting to show its age. Last year, if the voters recall, we requested an increase in that line to replace the 2 entry doors, both front and back. Those were original doors, original to the construction of the building. That project was completed, came out very nice.
I think I remember you could actually see from through the building to the outside.
Yes,
through some cracks around the doors.
Yeah, we were investing in cans of spray foam to keep the cold air out. It was over the years. I mean, the frames were steel. They obviously they're on concrete. They started to rust, and they got to the point where they just we couldn't repair them anymore. So we actually had to get them all replaced. We also replaced the overhead doors on the station, and if when you drive by the station, you'll see the similar type doors on our front of our firehouse as there are on the highway department. Those doors are designed to capture thermal energy and to let that thermal energy into the building space to warm the space. They've been working quite nicely. The doors on the north side are your regular heavily insulated doors to maintain heat.
I think that was partially funded by a USDA Community
was.
Facilities Grant. So,
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I also see vehicle maintenance, which isn't much of a surprise given the
Right.
aging fleet that we have. And
Yes.
don't know if you probably have a couple of equipment updates or anything like that you want to speak about.
Well, I do. The engines are starting to approach close to 30 years old. Engine 3, which is a 1995 KME fire apparatus, this year we had to remove it from service. That truck was the workhorse of the department for many, many years. And basically, because of age, metal fatigue, salt corrosion, years of service, it got to a point where we weren't able to utilize it. The frame itself was repaired about 5-6 years ago. And at that point in time, we were informed that the frame is at a point where it's so corroded, so thin that the truck's life expectancy is going to be short. This year, when we had the truck inspected,
I believe we had inspected by two independent.
yes, two independent, one in-house
Professional.
and two independent persons inspected the truck, and basically all agreed the frame is to a point where it's so corroded, the metal's soft. Some of the frame members are actually bent, and we had to take the truck out of service. We did investigate prices, costs to replace a frame on the truck. Obviously, it was cost prohibitive. It was upwards towards $90,000. And you're talking about taking a truck that's 1995 vintage, pulling it all apart, right down to its frame, and then, of course, trying to rebuild it. In my opinion, it wasn't a good use of taxpayer funds. So we're down to one engine right now.
And exploring some
We
potentials.
We are exploring other potentials. Well, we're looking to acquire a used engine to fill the gap until such time as we can acquire a new engine. We are looking at different grant opportunities and other funding opportunities that are available to either try to help offset the cost.
And we do have a warrant article this year, similar to the police department and Public Works Department, a capital reserve fund that will eventually be putting a steady amount away every year,
Right.
so that when these pieces of equipment come up for replacement, there's not a spike to the tax rate.
Exactly.
And we're not at that position right now, so I think it's
Yeah,
very good that you're seeking some alternative ways
it's
to
critical
fill the gap.
at this stage of the game to seek alternative funding and wherever possible. I don't know if you remember when the ladder truck was purchased. I believe the cost of the ladder truck was in the area of about $600,000, $620,000. That was about 16 years ago. And if we were to go out today and buy the same identical truck, same configuration, same size, right, everything being completely 100% identical, that truck right now would cost approximately $1.1 million.
Wow.
So you can see within that short period of time, the inflation, the cost of materials, have gone up, cost of steel, and basically the cost of the trucks have gone up. So it's really critical to start putting money away in anticipation of purchasing these large dollar items.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to your operating budget, I see that there are some decreases. For example, I see that the phone has decreased a small amount, your phone services, but then also overtime decrease, and it looks like some of that's actually headed out to the ambulance budget. I don't know if
Yes.
you want to talk a little bit about that, or?
Yes. What we did is when we started EMS back in September, October of 2019, based on the consultant's recommendations, we developed a EMS budget. The reason we did that was it would help us track costs, maintain costs, actually give us a good representation as to, what the expectation is financially. How much is the EMS actually costing us, and how much revenue are we bringing in? I could report that in the short time period that we were active in 2019, and that was approximately 4 months of activity, we billed out $250,000 worth of invoices.
So if invoicing remained the same the whole year, we'd be looking at billed out for service of about $750,000, $800,000.
Yes, I would say in the area of about $750,000 up to probably $850,000. Yes.
So I noticed, last year's budget, we planned for $240,000 of expenses to outsource EMS.
Right.
And we were kind of put into a difficult situation last year where after review, an independent review from MRI, our consultant, and the EMS Commission, and the Select Board supported the idea of bringing EMS in-house. They really saw that as the only option to try to stabilize EMS costs. And so $240,000 is what we were outsourcing, and it looks like this year through an EMS operating budget article of $162,000 and a lease purchase of an ambulance of $82,700, that we're within $5,000 of that. So
That's
we'll
correct.
be about $245.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We came in. I would say on the mark with the ambulance budget. We were able to keep costs down. We were able to acquire equipment at a very reasonable cost, which we can outfit the ambulance with. It was, and you have to realize that we purchased a new ambulance, so we were very fortunate to acquire the ambulance at that cost. Right.
And
if I can interject,
yeah.
and you have to understand too that this ambulance, when you look at an ambulance is actually a two-part vehicle. You have your cabin chassis, and you have the actual, I'll call it, box that contains the actual area where you would put the patients in, your cot, your loaders, and things like that. In this particular ambulance, this particular model and manufacturer, that box on that ambulance is can be transferred to another chassis, or it could be completely renovated. The manufacturer offers those services. So usually if you get, we'll say, 7 years out of the chassis, but you still have a box that's in good shape, basically your replacement is you're buying a chassis. You're not buying another whole box.
what does that look like, cost versus a new ambulance?
Oh, that's quite a bit. Your savings is probably in the area of close to, say, $100,000.
That's great. So that's good. And also, we have a warrant article this year to create an EMS revolving fund. And similar to some of the other funds, this is a place where the monies from billing will come in.
That's correct,
And
yes.
be reserved for that purpose to help offset any expenses that the taxpayers may incur from
Correct.
the operation of the EMS service.
Right, we're working towards, and the goal is to become revenue neutral. That's what the goal is. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get there. We're 6 months, 7 months into a 3-year pilot program. The way I see it, we've been doing a great job. The firefighters have been doing a phenomenal job. We've been getting high marks from the hospital and from the emergency doctors as far as the level of service, level of patient outcome. Response times have improved slightly. Reason being is because obviously the ambulance is a smaller, more maneuverable vehicle than a fire truck is. So it's we've been experiencing I'll say a lot of positives.
Yeah.
A lot of good feedback. We're getting high marks from the public and from our clients, our customers.
And I'd like to say, job well done. I think we've all seen that we were able to, our fire department was able to make that transition within 6 weeks. And usually this process of transitioning that could take, upwards of a year to 18 months.
Yes.
And you guys really rose to the challenge to make that happen so quickly.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we put together a good team. Good team. We had a good plan, stuck to it, and yeah, worked hard.
Yep.
Well, we got it done.
Good.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today, and look forward to seeing these budgets get through and us getting another successful year behind us.
Well,
So,
thank you for all your hard work too.
hey,
Thank you.
Chief.
Yeah.
So with me now is Opera House Manager Sue Pilot. As many of you know, over the past, how many years? Has it been 3 years now?
3 years under town management.
3 years
yes.
under town management,
Yeah.
and the Opera House has really been turned around from, kind of a beautiful historical building to more of a beautiful historic active community building.
Definitely.
And the budget each year has increased a little bit, revenues have increased a little bit, and it seems like, the more
Yeah.
activities we have there, the
Yeah.
more it supports the economy.
Absolutely. We've increased, I mean, if you look back 3 years ago, from $3,000 in revenue a year, and we're over 45, I think close to 45 this year.
Yep.
And anticipating maybe 56 next year if we can get the upstairs unfinished room completed. So that's another boost to our revenue.
Yeah. So, I mean, this year there are some increases, there are some decreases.
Absolutely.
I see some of the increases are things that are across the board. Like, for example, workman's comp, the town and the Opera House employees really have, I think, done well to stay safe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
One of the things that our staff does is we talk about anything that has to be done, and if anybody has to do anything that involves any climbing or anything, we always make sure there's 2 people there, and we operate, it's an office management and the building facility management, and we're very careful on everything that we do there. We've done a lot of repairs. We've done repairs of all the balcony seats. The majority of them were splintered and needed to be replaced, so.
And stained glass windows, I
The
believe.
stained glass windows have
preserved.
been reglazed, and I think phase 2 is next year, so that'll hopefully be done, not next year, we're 2020
We're in the
already,
year,
so it should be done this summer. So we've done a lot of maintenance and repairs there.
And there's a few other items in there. Again, it's just things that are part of a contract. Like, for example, the alarm system contract, I think, is a fixed thing, and it's the increase of, it might have been $1,000 this year.
And that's due also to any service contracts that you have. They're going to increase each year depending on, how many visits they have to make, and we make sure that ours is up and running and everything is operational as it should be for a large historic building.
And I also noticed there's a new line item for elevator licensing. I think we've been doing that. It's just
Yes.
probably been coming out of somewhere else.
Yeah, well, the company did give us a heads up that I think it was a 2,000 increase for them. But they are very prompt on any elevator concerns. Their service contract involves regular maintenance
Oh, it does,
visits.
yeah.
Yep, so they're.
More than just certification.
Oh, yeah, more than just certification, definitely.
There's also a couple of articles this year for the Opera House. I see Article 19 has to do with rigging, and I know that we've had an article in the past with rigging, and it looks like that project is moving forward. Tell us about why there's another article this year about
Well, basically,
And what is rigging? I don't know if
Okay,
people know
rigging is the bars and everything that are over the stage that hold lights, that hold props. So before it was put up by volunteers years ago, and it was never certified as a safe rigging system. So the fire chief and others have said over the past years that we need to get that replaced. And so when I was hired, one of the first things that you and I talked about was getting that completed. And we've worked hard with several different companies, getting them to come in and look at it. And I think that now between the lighting and the rigging, we're down to 2 companies that we're getting proposals for, and we hope to include the lights as well, because we do need upgraded lighting in there. And we've, as you know, you've gone after grants, and I've gone after small grants to help us. So all of that is hopefully will be done this year.
That's good. And do you remember how much the article is for the rigging this year?
I believe it was, we had 15,000 originally, but because we didn't use it in a certain number of years, it had to be encumbered. So now we're going to be asking for an additional, I believe, $20,000 to go with that, because of course pricing has increased as well. And so the more that you wait, the longer you wait,
The more expensive things get.
oftentimes it can increase. So,
Right.
and we're going to have it certified. We're going to have an engineer and everything, make sure that is exactly what should be there and safety for everyone.
Now, there's another warrant article for continued improvements to the Opera House. I know there's some projects that we've talked about. Do you want to talk about some of the plans for the continued improvements?
Well, as any building that's an older building, historic building, you're always going to find some things that you need to have done, as we have done. I mean, we've replaced a boiler. We finally have heat in our entryway now, which we haven't had.
HVAC
Yep,
complications?
all of that.
overrides,
So it's great now, though, because we have controlled heat, which is nice for everyone in the building as well as the staff. So the continued improvements are just anything that you need to have repaired. It's the ramp outside, outside the windows, framing. We're going to have paint outside. We're going to have
Cleaning of the exterior?
cleaning,
mildew.
absolutely. I mean, the cleaning, just cleaning of the building. It's difficult to even find someone that will come and clean the outside because they don't want to go all the way up and get that clean. So we've been trying to do that, a lot of it ourselves and with another company, but they can't even reach the top. So we're searching and trying to find, a company that will go up there and try to clean it all.
And we also have an unfinished space upstairs that I think we're looking at trying to maybe get it fit up ready, really. Some
Absolutely. I
electrical
mean, we did get the money for some of that, but just like everything else, it costs more. You know how much I've wanted to get that room done. I did a lot of work in there with volunteers cleaning out years of storage that was up in that room.
Yeah, the town used it for file.
Oh, everything.
file
Yeah,
storage
it
for
was.
How many years?
You
yeah.
couldn't even walk through it. It was so we cleaned that up, and we got shelving down in the basement, so all the town files are all organized. And now we're just waiting to get a contractor to come in and look at it. And with a historical building, you have to maintain the historical wood that's there. So you have to use any stockpile wood, just as we did with the balcony seats. Any stockpile that we have in the basement, we have to use again on those windows. You can't put anything new up there.
Right. Yeah, and so, and some exciting news on the basement too.
Yeah.
We were able to apply for a grant that has helped us secure an architect. We went through a bidding process, and we've had our first meeting with the architect, and we're looking at how we're going to finish out the Cottage Street level.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
exciting, yeah.
it's exciting because if you think of just where the Opera House was 3 years ago to where we are now, it's a vast improvement, and we keep increasing ideas to bring more revenue to the building and not leave empty space empty. You want to bring more life to it. You want to bring more activities there, and I think that's the goal of everyone.
It's interesting to see that this building, which was originally built as a cultural arts center for the community,
Yeah,
is
in 1894.
1894,
Yeah.
and it's coming back.
It is. It is.
The vibrancy of the community and the Opera House seem like
Yeah.
they're both
Yeah,
on the rise, so.
we've done very well there for just me starting out, and then having Jen Polton, our receptionist, come in, and because we are so busy, I mean, we're from the moment we get in there, and I'm busy even at home, you know, doing emails and working from home with people that are looking for dates, and because a lot of people know me and they know I'm from town. They, you know, so they just say, "Hey, Sue," you know, and I try to tell them, look on that Google Calendar that's online, and you can see all open dates. But I work with everyone, you know, just about any time when they want to know anything about the Opera House. So.
And what's the kind of range of things that you're seeing booked for 2020?
Well, we've already booking for 5 weddings coming up, which is, we had one, I think, the first year I came, so we've been promoting that a lot. We have all new linens, which we never had. We have all centerpieces. We have all kinds of things that people come in and they want to have a wedding, or any kind of nonprofit has events there. And I just show them what we have, and they can buy as a package. The table linens, the supplies, chafing dishes, everything. And so weddings, we have a lot of new nonprofits that are using the Opera House. We have,
I went to a piano concert there.
yep.
It was, and
Yeah,
then some
I'd like to
plays
have
and-
some more of those kind of events coming in. We've had, you know, tributes to the Beatles. We've had tribute to Johnny Cash. We've had some gospel singers. We've
Man
had
Group.
comedians there. Oh, Blue Man Group, wouldn't that be fantastic? We did.
Or it's a group like that. I
Yeah,
forgot their
yeah.
name.
And I mean, we had recycle percussion
It's
there.
like, that's the one I was
Yep.
thinking of, yeah.
So, I mean, it's open to everyone. It's open to everyone. It's just, I just need to keep reminding people that if you're looking for a space in the, you know, next month, you need to book early, because we are booking way ahead, so, yeah.
Yep. Well, good. You're doing great work there.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you.
With us now is Paul Smith, Chief of the Littleton Police Department. Chief, I see there's some changes in your budget this year, some increases, some decreases. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. You talk about the operating budget. Well, we've reduced our overtime by about $8,000. We've restructured the department. We feel that's an appropriate reduction, and we're hoping that it will certainly benefit the department and the community overall. There was an increase to our grant match by about $3,000. So essentially what that does is it allows us some flexibility to, throughout the year, should a grant become available that we need to leverage some funds to get equipment. For example, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, usually in their grants, they will fund 55% of the cost of a piece of equipment, providing we can come up with 45%. So if we should have a need, whether it's protective equipment for the officers or something to that effect, the grant becomes available. These funds will allow us to leverage that grant. There is an additional $5,400 in the budget.
Oh, yeah, the walking.
There's an additional $5,400 in the budget that we added. It's an annual maintenance cost for our scanner program, software, and hardware.
This is records retention.
Records retention. We're not immune to these software annual maintenance costs. We have to have that with our current police records management system. There is an additional $7,200 for fiber optics. So, the police department takes in a tremendous amount of audio and video and media. So in backing up and uploading, downloading media from different departments to our server at our IT, it's extremely slow right now. And so we're going to be upgrading our speed to be able to do that efficiently and not lose anything, hopefully during the backup. And we're also still retaining our redundancy. So the current system isn't going away, so should the fiber optics go down, we still have a wireless connection to our IT.
You have a new phone system now that's, I think, dependent on the internet connection too, so.
That's correct. We're voice over IP, and I kept saying IT, but I meant internet provider. So our current provider, we need a direct connection to them, and you're correct. We do have a new phone system. and that is internet-based as well. So we need the speeds capable to perform our jobs. The officers constantly complain that our connection to our server is slow, so they're not able to type the reports as quickly as they should. So hopefully this definitely will enhance that
Latency.
capability. Moving on, every 3 years, we've added $3,350 into our budget for seal coating our parking lots within the department. Our police department's almost 10 years old, or is 10 years old, and our pavement looks outstanding because we maintain it every 3 years. We seal coat it, they seal the cracks, and they do an outstanding job. So that's a 3-year maintenance. Every 3 years we add that into the budget. There's a reduction in some rentals and leases, $300 that we took out of there, just some equipment that we're no longer using that we returned. And we increased our gasoline line $2,000. We had previously cut it substantially. This is gasoline for our patrol vehicles. Prices of gasoline dropped. However, we cut it a little bit too much, so we had to add a little bit of extra money back into that budget so that it's appropriately funded. We also added another $500 into our cruiser maintenance line. That deals with car washes and washing our patrol vehicles. Again, we slashed it a little bit too much. Found that it was severely underfunded, and also there was a change in ownership of one of the local car washes that we contract with, and so there was a little price increase there that we didn't anticipate. And probably one of the biggest operational increases that we have in our budget is that we added 2 additional patrol cars, so it would be a total of 3 patrol cars that we will be purchasing in 2020 out of our operating budget. We've elected to do 3 cars every 3 years, so we wouldn't be purchasing another patrol vehicle or patrol vehicles until 2023. This rotation allows our primary fleet to be newer. Our fleet currently has cars anywhere between 90 and 120,000, and ideally, primary patrol vehicles should be under 80,000. So our goal is to keep those numbers low, keep those vehicles safer, and then the vehicles that we take out of primary patrol will be then put into more of an administrative role. And when we purchase 3 vehicles, we're going to get rid of 3 vehicles. So we don't get a lot of money for these cars. Current, they're 6 years old, have 100 and some odd thousand miles on them. Usually it's a cab company that purchases them. So we might get around $1,200 per car, and they generally don't even take them for trade-in. In 2020, the vehicles, we're keeping the same model, but the vehicle style is changing a little bit in the dimensions inside of the vehicles. So we have to replace all of our interior equipment. The cages won't fit from the 19 or older models. The internal light bars won't fit. All that equipment needs to be changed out. Also within that cost, our radios are antiquated. They cannot be upgraded and they cannot be fixed. We're just on borrowed time right now. Thank God we didn't have a failure, but these Motorola radios are outstanding, but they're over 20 years old, way past their lifespan and their expectancy. So we budgeted for 3 new radios to be replaced at the same time.
So I also see that there's 3 warrant articles that have to do with the police department. One is a new police officer, and it looks like the taxpayers are picking up a minority share, not very much of the total cost. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, very little cost. So we're working with the Department of Justice. It's a grant provided by the Attorney General's office. And essentially it's $60,000 annually. It's a 2-year grant. The grant is sustainable. It is something that as long as we continue to as long as we continue to apply, it will be granted to us because of this partnership that we're doing with the Department of Justice. $60,000 a year with an additional $5,000 in overtime. And essentially, the town, I believe, only has to pick up a small portion of that in 2020, which is $26,400. So for that investment, we are going to dedicate this officer to a team of individuals that will directly investigate narcotics dealing, trafficking, and use within our community.
And we're seeing an increase demand for police services in that area.
Absolutely. I mean, the reality of this is that in the past, since 2017 to January of 2020, the town of Littleton, we've had, unfortunately, 15 overdose deaths in our community.
It's really too bad.
So we have to change our strategy, and we're restructuring internally to directly address this issue of our narcotics issue. It's part of the statewide drug epidemic. We're not the only community that's being challenged by this, but I'm electing not to sit on our hands. We want to bring those numbers down to zero, and one way to do it is adding this officer to this particular team. We bring that team's expertise into our community upon demand, and directly target individuals that are involved in narcotics, the narcotics trade. And ultimately, I believe it's my responsibility as well as town government to continue our quality of life here in this community. And the big picture is these drugs, they're not produced in Littleton, but they end up here. And they don't end up here from the towns next to us. They end up here from Massachusetts, from Laconia, different portions of the state. And this particular team has the ability with multi-jurisdictional authority to go into those communities and get those individuals before they can come here and harm our citizens.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like money well spent.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, we have an expendable trust. Has to do with, I believe, training and part-time. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we recognized prior to my appointment as chief of police, the part-time budget line for the police department was basically eliminated. What I mean by part-time is part-time employees or police officers that have a job somewhere else. They don't work for us on a full-time basis, but are called in on occasion to work shifts or to cover vacations or recall for major incidents. Our funding initially was zero. We brought it up, I think, to $10,000, which covers one part-time officer throughout the year. We still feel that significantly gives us a disadvantage. We don't have enough part-time officers on a bench, so to speak. So if we do have an opening or a deployment or a long-term injury, we can't go to a bench and say, hey, do you guys want to come in and work? We just don't have that. So rather than increasing the budget, another $30,000 or $40,000, we elected to go this route. So what we're doing is annually, at the end of the year, we would take up to $10,000 of funds that are unexpended in our permanent positions line, and transfer those monies into this fund. So if I do have somebody that shows up and says, hey, I'd like to work with you part-time, I have money to equip them, to train them, and to pay them to work patrol, which I don't have right now.
And the fund itself is capped, I believe.
It is capped. It's capped at $50,000. So
it's
let's
not
say
somewhere where you're just going to be putting money away to hire a bunch of extra officers. We have it for a specific use, and it's capped.
it's specific use. It's for part-time. and it is capped at $50,000. So, for example, let's say we're at 4,500 this year, or 45,000 this year. We had 10,000 that was available in the permanent positions line. We would only take 5 because our cap is 50. So I think it's a unique way to try to address an issue to increase that bench. So I have people that I can reach out to and local talent that I have to be able to address issues within the police department.
Yeah, good. Now, there's one other warrant article, and it's part of a series of warrant articles. There's 3 that go with it, and there's a equipment reserve fund, and we're establishing an equipment reserve fund and starting it off with putting $1,000 in it, and it has to do with your vehicle replacement plan.
Sure. Well, you know, with this, I can tell you that it would certainly enhance our goal to be able to not spike the budget and significantly impact the budget every 3 years when we ask for 3 cars. In fact, what this would do is maintain a fund, so when that 3 years comes around, we have that fund available to be able to expend to purchase those vehicles, and you don't see a big spike in our operating budget. I'm not here saying that our operating budget is never going to increase,
Right.
because the reality is, you know, there are expenditures that are beyond my control, and things do increase. But what I don't like doing are those spikes. I think it's a pretty good plan to set money aside and eventually allow those expenditures to occur so you don't have a spike in your budget.
Right. Even if we're purchasing 3 vehicles in a year, we'd be able to put the money away the same amount every year, keeping the impact of the tax rate relatively
stable. And that's key. You know, as a taxpayer, nobody likes to see their annual check to the town going all over the place. And how can you budget your home expenses
or
like
escrow
that?
account?
Yeah, escrow accounts. That's right.
Yeah. Well, Chief, thank you for all you're doing with the department, and keep helping keep our community safe and keeping a really your section of the responsibility of the quality of life in the community.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
With us now is Director of Public Works, Doug Damko. First, I'd like to welcome Doug Damko. This is his first, not complete year, but first year with us at the town, and we're really glad that you're here. Doug comes to us with a very strong background in civil engineering and working for municipalities, and he's brought a lot to the table. And we've had several good public works directors, and they're big shoes to fill, but Doug's doing a great job. So just wanted to welcome you.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Andrew.
So we're here to talk about your budget and warrant articles. And one thing that's really notable is the public works budget is a large portion of the town's budget. And this year it's essentially flat. It's only $3,000 and change over last year. So I just wanted to say that there are some reductions and some increases in the budget. I've noticed there's some reductions in temporary labor positions and staff reductions. And I see some increases in data processing. Could you tell us a little bit about what's inside of there that caused a little bit of an increase?
Sure. Our department went through some big challenges with a large storm event a few years ago. And one of the things we realized is we didn't have good software to really adequately track the expenses for that project. And since it became a thing with FEMA in terms of being able to get reimbursement for that work, we realized we needed better software. Mm-hmm. So we did some homework. We looked at what other towns were using, checked out some things online, and found a good public works management software that we want to implement here for this year. Mm. So we're working with the vendor already. It's going to require some online data storage and things of that nature, so we had to incorporate that into our budget for this year. But we see it as a really great tool. It's not only going to benefit, you know, like a flood event like that, but it'll help us out with our vehicle management, help us out with tracking our purchase orders, and keeping track of all the activities that our department does with much more modern software. So we're looking forward to getting that implemented this year.
Good. And I know that there's another, I don't know if that's in here, but there's another project that you've been working on that really more in the sewer, but that's more kind of data, is the documenting of all the lateral assets. in town, and I think
Yes,
that,
yeah, that's going to be, that's actually tied a little bit more into our GIS system. We're
Mm.
kind of using that for some of that data
Mhm.
gathering, but the new public works management software will actually integrate with the GIS
Hmm.
system, so we're looking for some good compatibility there, so that hopefully we can link all that data together and we'll see a good system.
Good. And better efficiency, better tracking, better stewardship of the
Yeah.
taxpayers' assets.
Definitely.
I see professional services is also has a slight increase. What's in that line item?
Well, our department's always had the need, since we're doing projects, you know, we're doing road projects and maybe a drainage project and different things of that nature, to have an engineer on board that can come out and provide services to assist the town with those projects.
Mm-hmm.
So we may have them come out and do topographic surveying, bring out some of the things that we don't have as equipment that the town owns. You know, bring out some of their professional gear and help collect information. And for me, as a public works and municipal engineer, I still really rely on some of those consultants and those services that they have to help put together a project for me that I would be helping out for either our department or for the town.
Mm.
So that's what that budget is for, kind of
Okay.
on an as-needed basis.
I see also, I mean, fuel is up, but fuel usage and fuel prices have changed. I'm sure that's part of that.
Yep.
But I see traffic supplies are up, and I know that we had some needs there. You want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah,
what those
just
are?
for example, here in 2019, you know, we had a number of projects come up that were to do enhancements, improvements with signs, not just replacing. Our budget's typically based on just maintaining the signs we have. But we had a number of requests to put in new signs, some enhanced signage on Mill Street, some crosswalk signage over on Cottage Street. Those are just a couple examples. So looking forward to what's on for improvements of that nature in 2020. We anticipate more of that. So we increased our budget a little bit for that.
So 2020 has scheduled, and I'm going to talk about warrant articles a little bit now. So 2020 has scheduled a continuation of the paving plan, equipment purchases, and other projects that are on warrant articles. Could you talk a little bit about the equipment replacement plan? We have, and I'll just kind of preface it with this saying that, you know, we have some major debt where it's being paid off this year, and so we were faced with a challenge with our highway equipment, where we're really, I think, about a decade behind on our equipment replacement, which could create a really steep spike in the tax rate if we didn't handle this correctly. But you've come up with an equipment replacement plan. There's a warrant article dealing with that.
Yep.
Maybe just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd like to say that's probably the most important thing for our department for this year, for 2019, was to go through and get a full evaluation of what we had for our fleet and its age, and what really the most important thing that really stood out to me was looking back over the last 20 years to see what our trends have been with purchasing vehicles and equipment for our department. And what I saw was that 2 decades ago, we had a very good plan. It seemed like, from what I understand, it worked really well for keeping up with our fleet, and we were replacing about 15 vehicles or pieces of equipment over that decade. Well, this last decade, the last 10 years, that number dropped significantly due to budget constraints or whatever happened in those time period in that decade. But we dropped down to only 10 vehicles or equipment being replaced in this last decade. And so really that's put us behind. So that helped me understand the story of why our department has had so many older vehicles that have been breaking down more. This year we had 3 vehicles not pass inspection, and we're not able to be, put on the road. And in fact, that took away enough from our fleet that we didn't have backup vehicles. And it's really critical for good maintenance, especially during the winter, that we have adequate backup equipment so that when one equipment goes down, we can get right back on our routes and we can maintain that high level of service that we like to provide for winter maintenance. So getting a good handle on where our fleet was at, made me realize we need to really do some catch up. But can we do that in a very organized fashion, in a way that we can kind of equalize that out over the next decade and do some catch up on that?
How many pieces of equipment do we need? Like, should we be buying right now if we were to either replace things that are already down and out, or pieces of equipment that are failing right now? Like, if we were to do all of it this year, would we?
Well, I think it was about 9 pieces of equipment which is quite a bit
And
to
so
do
in
all in
order-
1 year. So to equalize that out,
Yeah.
we've spread that out over a 3-year period
Mhm.
to balance that. And then we're also looking with the financing to go with that to try to, try to stretch that out a little bit more to equalize that expense. But overall, we have about 16 pieces of equipment for this next decade.
That'll be coming.
Either equipment or vehicles that we want to, that we have in the new vehicle replacement plan that I put together.
Yep.
So
Good.
the goal is to get back on track and to have Littleton have the best, good quality equipment that we need for, serving the town roads. And
And so this article has 3 pieces for this year's plan.
Correct.
It's financed over a period of,
correct.
I believe it's either 3 or 5 years to kind of soften any impact. And I think the good thing about timing right now is, like I was saying earlier, we do have some major debt coming off of the books, so this will fit in and still have some remaining capacity to be able to go back to tax rate. So another warrant article deals with Dell's Dam, and I know the town's been working on with the Dell's Dam project. I know since I've been here, and this year I think we're asking for $20,000. It's obviously a more expensive project. Can you tell us about why this article's on and why we need $20,000?
Sure, sure. In looking through the records that I reviewed for the town here, I noticed that this project had kind of been put on hold. And it looked like the plan was to move forward with kind of a dam replacement, and it was going to be a pretty substantial project. So it seemed like there was an opportunity to keep the project moving forward. I thought it would be best to take some of the prior budgeted money that had been not expended, but had expired, and I wanted to bring some of that money back and get it reauthorized so that we can kind of do a more of a community involvement process and relook at all the cost numbers for the dam and the different options that are there versus replacement or repairs or other brainstorming
even brought
ideas.
Up, removal.
Yeah,
So,
even removal.
Yeah, I think that from our discussions, it seems like there's enough of a difference of opinion and importance to that, to the Dell's Dam and Dell's Park, that the community should really be involved in helping make the decision as to which way they want to go.
Right,
Is it removal? Is it a complete replacement? Or is it a repair?
exactly.
So,
So that's what this small, funding is for, is to basically do that community outreach and
you want
with the
Mary-
goal of ultimately getting to a decision point that how we'd go forward with the project.
Now, also I see an article on Broomstick Hill Road, and it looks like that's a $150,000 project.
Yep.
So-
That's a FEMA project that came out of that storm from a few years ago, and we received grant funding up to 75% for that project. So we were needing to get approval for the town's portion of that, which was $45,000 approximately. And we'll be going up there and re-graveling a good section, I think a mile or two of Broomstick that had some damage from that storm, and FEMA approved us to go up and improve that road a little bit.
I know mud season's a bit difficult up there. Would this
It
project
is.
help alleviate some of that?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Our goal is to try to strengthen the road and improve the ditching as well. So I hope we can make mud season a little bit better. We'd appreciate that too.
Now, each year the town does about $500,000 worth of road projects to kind of keep up with some of the pavement that we have. This year's $500,000 I see for a warrant article. Could you talk a little bit about what roads, what's our plans for?
Sure. Well, let me talk about the plan first. The town's had road plans, various editions of road plans over the years, and we're working off one from 2010 right now. And my job is to try to get that plan updated here this year. It's a relook at all the condition of the roads and the prioritization of those roads. So that's one of the projects I'm going to be taking on just as a management project. But the goal is to be able to make sure we're prioritizing the roads that we're spending that $500,000 on for each year going forward. But for this year, for the projects for 2020, we were working off that same plan from 2010, and we identified Far Hill Road as a road, the out of town section of Far Hill Road to do some paving on. And then we're looking for in town. We're looking at South Street. We did a little work on it last year, but we're looking at doing more this year. Some sidewalk rehabilitation, putting in some granite curbs where there's asphalt curbs currently. Maybe possibly extending the sidewalk. That's going to be part of that, potentially part of that project. So that's where we're thinking those monies are going to be focused on for this year.
Okay. You know, also, there's an article for parking improvements. In 2019, we finished, the community finished with the Parking Commission a parking study. It talked about some low-hanging fruit and larger projects. And the town, last year's town meeting, approved a warrant article to purchase the barn behind 42 Main Street to expand the parking lot back there. Could you talk a little bit about what the warrant article this year will do? I believe it's $20,000 for parking improvements.
Yep. Yeah, well, like you were saying, we're going to take those monies, especially with the barn being removed. It's a great opportunity to relook at that parking lot and try to maximize its function. And see if there's any other needed improvements, whether it's storm drainage or lighting, other things of those nature. I think we're going to try to focus, at least getting through the engineering, preliminary engineering, maybe final engineering with those with that budget, so that we can be ready to go to do a project.
So there's quite a few projects that are planned. Still quite a few going on right now too. But could you give us an idea of when these projects will be completed? I mean, you talked a little bit about the planning, but the road projects or...
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
one other project we didn't cover, I'm sorry, was a retaining wall.
Oh yeah, that's another small project. Westerly Street, just in getting to know the town and being here, I learned a lot that retaining walls are important, and there's quite a few of them around town here in different areas. And it came to my attention, Westerly, it's a small little dead end street here in town, but it had a wall that was holding up the road and starting to lean and show signs of failure. So I thought it was an appropriate project for just a small project to put in the budget for this year.
Protect the road. So, and so when do you expect these projects to be complete?
Well, the goal for all of them, I think, is to try to get them accomplished this year. We'll give every effort to, particularly the construction projects, the retaining wall and the $500,000 road paving. We'll definitely try to put that out here in the spring. Shortly after, as long as the budget's approved for it, we'll start preparing the documents on those things and be out to bid for the summer construction season.
Right. Well, well, I thank you for your time, and thank you for all the work you've been doing. You've been a big help since you've come on board, and yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thanks. So with us now is Transfer Station Manager Brian Patno. The transfer station's had an interesting year this year. The proposed budget is actually up $30,400 over 2019. There's several things impacting that, revenues and expenditures. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the items that are impacting your budget this year?
Definitely. There's a couple things, a lot of small changes we've had to do this year, but the big things are we're changing our labor a little bit, just because we're being more efficient now, which always helps. Tipping, which is the cost per ton to get rid of the trash and C&D and bulky waste. That's seen a small increase. Big thing is transportation cost to send it to the landfill. Unfortunately, last year it was just prices jumped up just because the company was losing money, and that's what that is. Revenues, doing pretty good. That's definitely good.
This is one of the few departments that actually produces revenue, but I've noticed, over the past year or two, the revenues, per ton have dropped, but
Yes.
the volume this year is something that's notable.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, prices have dropped the last couple of years. A lot of it is because China is not taking the U.S.'s recyclables anymore. So what that has done is all the mills in the U.S. are overflowing, and typical supply and demand has just dropped the prices. Luckily, we've been in a good place where even though prices are down, the quantity of the items we're getting in are going up, especially cardboard, which is has been the busiest year since 2010.
Hmm.
You know, even things like appliances, scrap metal, electronics, everything like that, we're just the quantity.
Construction, demolition.
Construction and demolition, yeah. We're definitely seeing a lot of bulky waste, furniture, mattresses, couches, chairs, all that stuff.
It's
Yep.
probably a sign of a strong economy.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Now, the transportation has 2 warrant articles this year. Can you tell me about the needs being addressed for those? I see, you know, actually there's 3 warrant articles. There's one for discontinuance of a special revenue fund. I don't know if you want to talk
Yeah.
about what that is.
Yep. Just quickly, it's a big discussion. So back, I believe, in 1994, we went to an enterprise fund, a special revenue fund, where all the extra revenue we get would go into this fund instead of back into the general fund, and we could use it for future purchases. Unfortunately, change in regulation has made it differently, so our budget actually had to come out of that and be a special warrant article. We're hoping to change that.
So
that
every year you'd have to have
every year-
a specific warrant article to pull the money out and put it towards your budget. Yeah.
Exactly. With this change, we're hoping to then be able to get it back into the regular budget line, so it wouldn't be a separate warrant article. The other nice thing about how that would be set up is, in my opinion, it would save us a little bit of money, because of right now, a lot of when we buy town bags, most of it comes out of the warrant article, but we still have to have a little bit in our budget. So we're kind of double dipping.
Putting money
a
in both
sense.
places, yeah.
Exactly, just in case that warrant article fails. So now we don't have to do that and hopefully get a little costs down next year.
Yeah, and one other article is repair, replacement, equipment buildings. I know you've done a few projects there, door replacement, some other things. What's in that warrant article for this year?
Yes, some of it is to buy extra town bags. That's always a large expense for us, about $10,000 to $15,000 a year. The other thing is just typical maintenance, repair on equipment, on our balers. You know, we buy grease, we buy, if we need a tool, it all comes out of that. Already this year, I found some cheap paint, and we were doing some painting around the transfer station. We're hoping to build some new recycling tables and stuff like that.
Good. You know, Littleton has, I think, some really great department heads, and Brian, you're definitely one of them. There's some recognition, I think, that you've received this past year by being, was it elected or appointed?
Appointed.
Appointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that new role?
So, yes, there's a nonprofit organization, a co-op called the NRRA, the Northeast Resource Recovery Association, which includes around 400 municipalities, mostly from New Hampshire, but there's some from Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, all the way down to Connecticut. And I am now on the board of trustees. So we're one of, I think right now there's 13 of us on it.
And what our membership in that as a community, what are some of the benefits of that?
Being part of a member, you get cooperative purchasing of things like baling wire, strapping, stuff like that. But they're also a broker to get rid of a lot of our recyclables. We have a contract with them right now for getting rid of our cardboard. It's actually, we get with this contract $12.25 a ton over the market price. So definitely helps.
So by all of these communities grouping together under this organization, we're able to better broker and market our products. So.
Definitely,
Yep.
yes.
And you also have a continuing leadership role in the Pemmy-Baker Solid Waste District?
Yeah, I'm the chairman of the Pemmy-Baker Solid Waste District, which is 19 towns. I think we're the most north town. A lot of them are down Plymouth, Hampton, Thornton, all of them, yeah.
Yep, and I think we also last year had a tour of our facility and an annual meeting at the Opera House.
Yes.
Yep.
The NRRA decided to have a marketing meeting, which they have every month, but they're trying to get it on the road. So every couple months, they'll have it at a different transfer station, and we were chosen to be the first one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you for all you do. You've got a difficult job with the changing market, and I think you've handled that really well. And thank
We'll
you
get through it.
for helping the community. All right.
Thank you.
So with me now is Library Director Megan Carr. I believe this is your third budget season, so you're seasoned. Your budget this year looks pretty flat, so just under 2% increase. And I see some of the things are just fixed, like workman's comp insurance, for example, is down, in all departments because I think of a good claim history, and water, utilities are up a little bit. And there's a few other areas that are up, audio, visual, and programs, but it's all pretty small.
Yep, I mean, we're running more programs, so we need a little bit more funding to run those, but it's small change, really.
Yep. So really kind of continued what 2019 looked like, just a little bit more for programs. Is there anything else about 2019, 2020 that you'd like to update us on?
Yeah, I mean, 2019 and leading into 2020 were really good years. We did a lot of really good partnerships with REC, with the State Law Library. We now have a Westlaw terminal, so we're one of the legal research providers in the North Country, the only one. We were awarded a USDA grant to upgrade our heating system and put in a heat pump system, which we're in progress on. So it's been a pretty successful year, I think.
Also there was some kind of an analysis done of the building.
Yes, so we also completed a conditions assessment with a preservation plan for the building, which will allow us to help get some more grant funds and help us phase out what needs to be done with the building and figure out what's most important to go forward on fixing.
So kind of a capital improvement plan for the whole building. The building was built in 1906. It's kind of historic. I think is it on the register?
Yep, it's on the New Hampshire
It's on the New Hampshire Register. And it was built as part of a Carnegie.
Yep, we're a Carnegie Library.
Yep.
We're, I think, a beautiful old building, and it's worth preserving.
And you're making it more efficient with heat pump systems and these other improvements. This year there's a warrant article for $15,000. Is that to continue this work?
Yep, so that's to add to our capital improvement plan, the fund that already exists, and start working on those projects. We're hoping to reach out for other grant funds to match so that we can get these projects done sooner, but otherwise we'll just keep plugging away at what we can.
Okay. And in addition to your budget, you do some fundraisers and other methods of getting some revenue too. I think you've brought back an event called the Gala.
Yes.
And this is your second year of doing that? Is that correct?
Yeah, so this will actually be our third one, and
Okay.
we're mixing it up a little this year. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We're doing a trivia night. Are you smarter than a librarian? So if you want to compete against the library staff, I think you
Neat.
should come join us.
Neat. You know when that's going to be yet?
It'll be at the end of May. I want to say the 29th, but without looking at a calendar, I
Okay.
can't
Good.
say for sure.
Yeah. Anything else you have about the budget or warrant article? No? All right. Well, thank you for all you're doing for the community. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us now is Chris Wilkins, Parks and Rec Director. Chris,
Howdy.
how you doing?
Very good. It's been a good week so far.
Good. And a good year ahead.
Absolutely.
So this year's Parks and Recreation budget is actually down 8%.
Yep.
I also notice revenues are down. First of all, why are revenues down?
So in 2019, we were catching up on some old billables, and now that we're caught up with most of those billables, we're bringing it down to what our numbers actually reflect.
Okay. Now, expenses are down too, and it looks like a lot of that is seasonal position reduction. There's some small increases in areas like heating, fuel, health insurance is decreased. There's a training line is decreased a little bit, and even building maintenance is decreased.
Yep.
Does that cover about almost everything you think involves a decrease?
Yeah, most of it is staffing, and we've been able to be very efficient with how we deploy our staff, making sure that we are still hitting our ratio numbers. But if people aren't there, we're able to send people home. So we're able to really work with our staff on what our needs are and within our budget range.
So last year the voters approved a warrant article, a pretty significant one, $125,000 for a playground replacement at Remick
Yep.
Park. There were some safety concerns. This year you've been able to take that 125, leverage it into a bigger, broader project covering the entire park. You want to just talk a little bit about the update and what's been done with that project so far?
Yeah, so originally that was for $150,000 with $125,000 coming from our taxpayers. And we decided to expand that project, and we're working with Littleton Regional Healthcare. They've been a great community partner, and we have turned that playground project into a $200,000 handicap accessible playground. And they have been great community members and helping us get this project in motion with a big donation for us.
And so the playground project now going from 125 to 200,000, but then we were able to take that 200 and leverage it so that the project is now $400,000 project.
Yes.
No local taxpayer input for the increase. And
Yep.
what does that entail?
That is the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, and we have been the state has approved it, and it moves on to the federal level now, and it's very likely that that will go through. Those projects, there's 3 of them involved in that extra $200,000 that we'll be getting from the federal government, and one of them is a literacy walkway, and we'll be paving the existing walkway at Remick with a potential change in the path itself because it needs to be ADA compliant. It also includes a snack shack renovation that we use for local programming, bathrooms for events, and sports programming, youth sports programming. So we'll be taking down the old building that's there and putting up a new one. And the third part is drainage for Remick Park ball field, which is at the bottom of a hill, and it generally gets pretty swampy in the spring and in the fall. And this will help kind of mitigate that so that the high school sports aren't playing in a swamp. So it'll really energize the park and extend our seasons, hopefully.
Oh, great.
Yep.
So Parks and Recreation has a much smaller warrant article. There's only one warrant article this year. It looks like it's a $20,000 project, and
Yep.
it looks like you've already raised some funds, and the ask to the voters is $10,000.
Yes. So through volunteer fundraising and being a partner of the month in 2019 at the Littleton Food Co-op, we've raised over $10,000 so far. And our warrant article is for an additional $10,000 from the taxpayers to fund the fencing and access to the plot that we're looking at right now. And we're working on
So location has been selected?
We're working on the details at the moment, but we're working with a community partner for land that will be donated for our use. And so, once that's finalized, we'll make a big announcement and really push forward. Additionally, we are the partner of the month again, I believe in July at the Food Co-op again. And they've done a phenomenal job at raising funds in the community, averaging over $5,000, I believe, in 2019 for each group that does it.
Wow.
So we'll ask for our community to chip in again and shop at the Littleton Food Co-op and round up for us.
Yeah, that's great.
So.
Yep. Well, thank you, Chris. You're doing a great job
Yeah,
with
thank
Parks
you.
and Recreation for all ages, and look forward to see what's coming next.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. With me now is Andrew Ledestri, Managing Director of Upstage Players. How you doing, Andrew?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. So this year we have Article 36 on the warrant, which proposes a lease to Upstage Players. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Again, Upstage has been so excited to have been a tenant at the Opera House doing our shows there for the past few years, and we've come to feel like it is home for us. And we're excited to take that next step, and the option to lease the building would allow us to come in and become the new stewards of the space. And then from there to be able to go in and manage the day-to-day operations in addition to what we're doing, which we're excited to do and bring our arts experience to the table and bring our event experience to the table and help the Opera House become that cultural arts center that downtown Littleton really could use.
So, on that point, what experience does Upstage Players as an organization have, or qualifications that really, kind of fit and align with this plan?
Yeah, no, we have a really active board of fantastic volunteers, and that board consists of educators, past principals who've dealt with huge budgets when they're dealing with different events and the jobs that they've worked before. We have some fantastic people on our board who have taken other buildings here in Littleton and transformed them and refurbished them for arts organizations to be able to go in and do what they are doing. We have business owners, local business owners, who have successful businesses in the town. And so the business mindset beyond just the artistic piece that our theater creates is well steeped. And they are the overseeing and governing piece of our organization. Myself personally, besides being the artistic director of the organization, my background is in logistics and events management. And I worked for over 15 years down the road in Lyman at Ogant's, which in the time that I was there, we turned from sort of a small summer camp into an event center and a wedding event center. And actually, we quadrupled the budget that they had brought in from the time we started to the time we finished. So that was a really big project of over 100 buildings and 300 acres. And so that piece alone, gives me that perspective for the property management, the building management, and then the whole other side of the events piece I bring to the table from time in New York City and Los Angeles and working in different sorts of events and catered events there. And wow, it's been a good time.
Now, also the article talks about a 10-year lease, which is a long commitment for upstage players to.
It's a long commitment for everybody, but when we looked at the option of doing this and we started to talk as a board and see, what makes sense for us to make this happen, we realized that it was more than just wanting to come in and be the theater company that is resident in the Opera House. We wanted to be able to come in and raise funding to be able to make additional changes to the Opera House and or to purchase new equipment that we know will enhance the things that not only we're doing, but hopefully the other events that we might be able to bring in can also do. And it's really important to us. There was so many people, I think, who worked tirelessly to get the Opera House to where it is now. From the time that it was dilapidated and needed major work to the past few years when Sue Pilot's been working so hard to grow the attendance at the building, the different kinds of events that are there. So much work has been done, and the historic building needs to be carefully preserved in the way that it is. But there are some elements, the more performance things above the stage, lighting pieces. And so when we thought about investing at the level that we would want to invest, to us it only made sense to do that at a 10-year commitment to be able to make it worth our while if we're going to be putting money into the building as well in that way.
Okay. What about really community use and availability? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So our business model that is important in terms of how we think that we can run the space and make it work well isn't about sort of coming in and closing ranks and saying this is just a place for upstage players events. It's about coming in and saying this is a community building and how can we sort of overlay what we do. So what we're looking at doing is first looking at what the town's events they've always done there, the town meetings, things of that nature, and laying those onto a calendar before we even put our shows on the roster, and then going ahead and plugging our things in addition to that. And then that leaves a really large section of the calendar for the year to then be open to the public for the kind of events they've been able to have, whether they're doing a private event, an event for their company, they want to have a birthday party or a wedding, to be able to do those, and that will allow some income in to help with the operational cost. It's necessary in what we're looking at for the business model, so it's important to us for people to know that there's no intent to take away that community piece. We want to enhance it. And then when there's still openings in the calendar, we want to then go in and really help it become a cultural arts center. Where can we, as an arts organization, come in and find new kinds of events? Are there bands that can come in? Are there authors that can come in and do readings? We really want to speak to the nightlife in Littleton. Littleton is so busy in the day, especially through the summers and when the tourism piece is happening. And then it gets to be the evening and things start to filter out. And I think that between events in the day and the evening, that a central hub right at the Opera House can really help the nightlife in Littleton blossom.
On the cost side, I noticed on the warrant that this article has a bit of a different tax impact.
It's true. So we, as far as I know, I believe we're the only warrant article that's up that would actually reduce the taxpayers' tax impact. and which I think would be surprising as an arts organization normally. But our goal is to be able to come in and sort of help with that burden. I think that now the town spends quite a bit of money to keep that building operationally working in the way that it does. And we want to be able to come in and do our piece, our management piece of it, and take over some of that operational cost. And it looks, when you look at the warrant article in that first year, it's a really small reduction in what the taxpayers' piece would be. But by the second and third year, we're looking at taking over some, I think, $60,000 or $70,000 in what we proposed of what is now being put into the building and off the taxpayers' plate.
Now, events at the Opera House bring a lot of people downtown that might not be there otherwise. Do you have plans in place to continue that or collaborate with business to?
Sure. So partnerships are a really big piece of how we've grown the Upstage Players over the last few years. We spent a lot of time talking to restaurants and building deals for like a dinner and a show experience, which is something that we're doing. And so right now we're pairing with 3 different restaurants downtown that allow that to happen right through this season here. There's different coupon deals that we offer. So it's all about what we can do that sort of works really well together. And we've gotten a lot of interest to find different ways to make that piece happen as we're trying to find those partnerships, build that base. And then from there, you get people from all these different businesses that want all of their guests to go to different events that you have at the Opera House.
Now, arts are, like you said earlier, it's kind of surprising that arts are
Right.
actually lowering the tax rate.
Right.
And, you know, arts in themselves are funded in a different way than you know,
Sure.
a regular business. I don't
Sure.
know. How does
So-
Upstage Players?
Well, one of the questions I
that?
think that we've been fielding a lot recently is, you know, how could a small community theater come in and take over these kind of operational costs and the things that you're saying? And when we do our budgeting, we budget like any other nonprofit does. The goal is to be able to provide really high quality artistic events for people to come and see. And so when we sell tickets to those events, the events themselves aren't necessarily counted on to bring in that profit. A lot of a nonprofit's budgeting is involved in grant writing and fundraising, and where do you make those funds to make the art happen? And we have a fantastic team of people who have written grants, who have been involved with different foundations and funds, who have been able to supply some of those grants, who have committed to us that they are interested in investing in the right way, whether it's their time or their resources, to be able to see that we can budget to not only see that the Opera House succeeds, but that we can continue to advance the artistic piece that we're trying to.
Excellent. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to the article?
You know,
Explanation?
Upstage Players has been, I think, for the last 6 years now here in Littleton, and we really feel like we are an important part of this community, and we're excited to help this community continue to develop and grow at the Opera House. So if people haven't been to an Upstage Players show, we really think that they would love to check it out, and we would love to hear from everybody in terms of the kind of things that they would like to see, with the hopes that this goes through, and then we will see what kind of other arts and culture things we can bring to the community.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just to review one more time, that if all of the warrant articles pass and the default budget passes, the estimated tax impact would be 37 cents. If the proposed budget passes and all warrant articles pass, the estimated tax impact would be 73 cents per thousand. And this is unrelated to any school impacts or county impacts.
We hope that you found this overview to be helpful in learning more about this year's budget and town warrant articles. If you would like more information or have any questions, please call the town offices at 444-3996, and please come out and vote. Thank you for watching.